Well, hello, my dear friends. How is it going? I hope I find you all in good health and safe and sound, truly. It's been a mad world and becoming madder with each passing day. Well, that's bleak. What a way to start, right? My apologies. Welcome. Be very welcome. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Ari Theriger, and today I would like to share with you I think it's a simple message that I believe to be important, and we should definitely talk about this. Otherwise, I would not have come here, right? I at least find it important, but I don't know your feelings on this subject. But anyway, I know this year I have only presented one single video on YouTube, and after half a year, I am here all of a sudden with a video after months without a word. I know I've promised you a few updates from time to time, a few updates on my life and how things are going, as I know that many of you care about me and my well-being, and I assure you, all is well. In fact, I do believe it can't get any better than this. I am truly experiencing the best days of my life, so rest assured, all is well. No worries, and I thank you for caring and for your love and friendship, as always. Now, that's not the point of this video, right? I want to get into it right away, if you would be so kind, if you please. Listen, friends. Recently, my girlfriend and we were having many long conversations about the state of spirituality, occultism, esotericism, in this modern era of internet madness and all sorts of internet gurus, spiritual leaders, self-made shamans, witches, pagan priestesses, and vulvas and whatnot, and all sorts of titles gained in a few weeks without an understanding on what they are talking about, but most importantly, I think, and very tragic and dangerous, the lack of respect and responsibility towards the audiences these people speak to, and the quantity of products they sell on the spiritual, capitalizing the spiritual without any consideration for what they claim to speak about, right? This is a talk that I have had somewhat recently at Patreon on a video about animism and key principles necessary to understand before jumping into animism, and it is also applied to spirituality in general. And even though that video for now is a Patreon exclusive content, I promise you that in time it will be available for free and to to everyone here on YouTube at some point. No worries about that. The thing is, I was having these conversations with my girlfriend. We were debating these things, and I would much prefer she would be the one speaking about these things and not I. She's much better at expressing herself and words and all, and her English is miles better than mine. But it is what it is. You are kind of stuck with me now. So, moving on. Yesterday we were watching a video about Hannah Murray with Anna Murray, the actress, where she speaks about her experience with spirituality and how she has been a victim of these new age spiritual schemes, and that very much operate like a pyramid scheme. The organization she was part of or she was involved with, and the people she was involved with, which they very much work like a sort of multi-level marketing in a total capitalization of the spiritual with very questionable behavior, like so many groups and people out there selling the spiritual, right? And it's a brave and honest testimony. I think you should definitely watch that, and I believe it to be very, very important. It's on the YouTube channel, How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. So please do watch it if you have the time. It is important. I believe it to be important, and a message many should definitely hear and be aware of. And on top of this, a new Patreon recently sent me a message looking for advice in terms of the spiritual and some experiences they are having, and all of that. And this is something that happens from time to time, right? Over the years, I have received many messages of this sort, of people seeking advice on these things, right? And while indeed I am a person with my own spiritual experiences and endeavors, and it is a subject that I've been experiencing for decades, and also while studying these subjects, very much also from an historical point of view, right? A very academic point of view as well. I do not think I'm in the position to give any advice, right? I don't want people, I don't know what people are going through, their background, their traumas and fears, what they are experiencing, their own cognitive capacities, how much they know or don't know about these things, and what point or stage they see themselves at. I know nothing of that, right? So these are all online people whose lives are not entwined with mine, and or vice versa. We are not part of each other's lives, right? So I don't think I am in a position to offer advice to strangers and to people I'm not actively part of their lives, at least enough to actually know them or know a little bit about them, right? However, I do know that, sorry, I do know that there must be a process of mutual respect, understanding, and understanding the meaning of respect and respecting others and ourselves, and most importantly, I think, in this world of spirituality, there must be discipline and a sense of responsibility, right? Discipline and a sense of responsibility is often what is very much, unfortunately, lacking from groups, organizations, and people who exist to sell the spiritual and have absolutely capitalized the spiritual in order to obviously gain money by exploiting people's vulnerabilities or moments of vulnerability, right? Especially on online platforms, we see quite a lot of people. I mean, take notice this perspective of even people that are not on the spiritual and of the occult or on the esoteric, that are quite irresponsible towards their audience, right? Without measuring the consequences of their actions and how that shapes or twists the mentality of the public. They are in a privileged position where they have a platform and where they can speak to huge audiences with such a lack of respect and responsibility. And then we see several trends popping up that cause real harm to real people, either self-harm or people cause harm to others. We have all seen this, right? And then, if such people have such a lack of responsibility, lack of respect for their audience, and act in ways because they know there's no accountability, now imagine how people who sell the spiritual will act towards their audience, right? They are seemingly respectful, or more like polite. They seem polite for as long as they have something to gain. They create community and maintain it for as long as it is profitable to them, right? And when people begin to have real troubles, real consequences, they aren't there to help you. They lack discipline and understanding on the things they are talking about, and the things they are talking about and the things they are selling, and much less having a sense of respect and responsibility towards the audience, towards real persons, real people, the persons that are consuming such content and pay for a glimpse or access to such content. Because that's what they are doing, right? They are not truly interested in helping people. They are merely selling access to a self-constructed version of the spiritual that has been built to make them profit for profit, right? People who are real, actual, let's say shamans, for a lack of a better term, just a general term, or spiritual guides, witches and whatnot, come from a background of tremendous discipline, humility. They have learned about empathy, and they have been inserted into a reality that only works and it is only beneficial with a sense of responsibility. And there are very few people like that nowadays. And To engage with the spiritual, one must come from a background of a lot of work towards the self, in the sense of understanding, truly understanding who we are, what we are made of, our traumas, the things that trigger us, our fears, our joys, our pursuits, a deep understanding of self respect and self love, self understanding in general, right? And this requires discipline, which ultimately leads to having responsibility towards ourselves, towards the, let's say, the community, and towards who seek help and understanding and advice, right? Unfortunately, those who sell to us the spiritual with much convincing advertisement to their product and to the access of their own or to their own perceptions of the spiritual. Most of them, they lack accountability and responsibility. They lack discipline, but they have access to a huge audience of people, of persons, and the consequences of their lack of responsibility and lack of discipline are dire, right? Their talk is very seductive, truth be told. There's a lot of claims that lures us into it, right? That's their field of expertise, advertisement, right? And we can all of us, we can all be victims of such schemes. Absolutely all of us. What is being sold is not spirituality or magic or knowledge in any serious sense. And I'm not just talking about the history and the scientific study of the spiritual and of the magical and the occult and the esoteric knowledge and so on and so forth. I'm also very much speaking about the actual historical actions and disciplines in general, and the conduct of people who initiated others and taught others on these things, right? The real actions by real people. It is part of human nature. It is something humans actively seek, and there's been historical people and groups who were there to present and teach these things to people, whether we believe it or believe these things or not. It's not a question of if you believe in these things or not. It's a question of there are indeed people, real people, who do believe in these things and actively seek out these things, and they can come to harm if the people or groups who claim to know and to offer such knowledge into the spiritual don't have a sense of respect and responsibility and accountability, right? So many people are drawn to the spiritual and to magic for a variety of reasons, and for whichever reasons they do that, when such reasons and feelings and emotions are exploited or are sort of inflated and probed without a careful approach to people's conditions, it can be very dangerous. It can lead to psychological catastrophes, real injury and harm, and feeding upon people's mental conditions that have not been taken into consideration, neither by the persons themselves nor the ones who claim to be spiritual guides and claim to know about magic, right? So in the best case scenario, people become disillusioned, disappointed. They end up quitting a pursuit for the spiritual and for the magical. It ceases to exist a will and wish to engage in more meaningful and fuller ways to be alive and experiencing life on other levels, right? And that's the best case scenario, right? But many people seek the spiritual and the magical for a variety of reasons, and those reasons that already come from an unhealthy point, right? And when that's exploited without respect and responsibility, without discipline, it can augment those unhealthy points. It can augment trauma, and real harm can come from it when people reach psychosis. When you or me or any of us make a choice to engage with the spiritual, with magic, right, that choice must be made, or should be made, with the full consciousness that there are there are many reasons why we seek this, right? Why it calls to us, be that curiosity or certain experiences we are having, or from a point of seeking a deeper understanding of things, or to seek answers when that's the final stage of life, with life with many troubles and problems and despair, and people want to escape, or to feel loved and protected, or to have a sense of belonging beyond life, beyond the life they have that is full of hurt and trauma. But there are many reasons, right? And not all of them are for good reasons. So it requires discipline and self-knowledge to try to balance between taking care of our mental health and our life in general, and trying to have a balanced life where it is possible to have our daily lives as adults, taking care of ourselves and of others, if that's the case, having that capacity and the things life requires, and at the same time treading lightly into the spiritual, as it were, until we find such a balance where there's a healthy coexistence between the mundane and the spiritual, or the magical, which the magical can be perfectly inserted and be part of the mundane, right? And of course, you can argue that I've heard this before, that only weak people and ignorant are lured into these schemes, or people with mental problems and whatnot. I do disagree with that, obviously, but picking on that, I mean, see the problem there. It's not about being ignorant and weak, whatever that means. It's about being people. These are people, real persons, that at some point in life come from a vulnerable background, right? Doesn't matter who they are and how they are. What matters is the bigger problem here, which these are people of all sorts, and at any point, anyone, absolutely anyone, can see themselves in a vulnerable position, especially emotionally and psychologically speaking, and there's people who exploit that vulnerability. Spirituality and magic, it's something that doesn't just requires discipline and responsibility, but also follows certain ethics, sort of unspoken ethics. In fact, there will never be a sense of responsibility and respect if people do not learn about empathy and construct ethical values that helps them to guide their way through life with respect and respect towards others. Spirituality and magic isn't something you simply learn and act upon. There's first a process of long discipline on learning how to be human and having a conduct with the full conscious that actions do have consequences, and that people are not resources to be exploited, right? But rather they are lives, they are conscious existences that deserve or are deserving of respect and respect towards life itself. So people have lives of their own, thoughts, emotions, desires, struggles, wishes, and dreams. They are not products to be exploited and taken advantage of for some self-gain. And so, whatever reasons that lead people to seek the spiritual and magic, such reasons can lead us into wrong paths if the experiences and wishes and emotions are unchecked. It can be very intense, and we need to take control of it. Otherwise, it may have quite a negative effect, as you might imagine, and sometimes permanently. It requires discipline. I mean, more often than not, we do need to know ourselves, and if we have any triggers, you know what I mean? We do need to take care of our traumas first, and the things left unsolved that still bothers us and have hold on our moods. And this I have heard from those few I consider to be wise people in such matters, and are able to work as sort of intermediaries with the spiritual, for lack of a better term. There are many things that have a considerable weight and presence in our minds, right? And many traumas shape us in different ways. Some traumas can never be fully healed, unfortunately, but we can find the tools to deal with them and hold them back, sort of, and carry on with our lives, right? And that self-knowledge is important, and reaching that point requires discipline. There's no other way around this. And after we deal with ourselves, truly know ourselves, and resolve such problems, we can then better conduct our ways into the spiritual and the magical, and see how much of our own fears and traumas have a hold on such experiences. It's a sort of, I don't like this word, but it's a sort of purifying our minds so we can filter things and truly receive the meanings and messages behind the experiences we have, right? So if we do not take care of ourselves first, it is it is as the mind picture I've painted for this most recent patron that came to seek advice on these things. It's like trying to find a pebble in murky water, and many things can come with that water that will distract us from trying to find a pebble, right? Once we have found the tools that serve to control our moods and impulses and fears, the water progressively becomes clearer, and not only we find a pebble at last, but we find other things we didn't even know were trying to reach us, but couldn't reach us because we were not able to see them, right? And this self-discipline and self-knowledge and self-respect and love is necessary to sort of filter out, or rather to perceive the intentions of those who exploit the spiritual for profit, or to truly find those who genuinely exist and conduct their lives towards helping, let's say, the community. So when we see ourselves in situations of having certain experiences we cannot explain and don't know where to start, or where to go in order to understand them, right? Or any situations that leads us to seek persons or groups that seem to want to help us, or seem that might help us with these things. I mean, more often than not, it's a mistake, and we end up in terrible situations. The self-help guru culture and other persons within spirituality, full of new age and pseudoscientific language, is very dangerous to people who seek the spiritual and seek answers, or an alternative to try to understand what is happening to them, or simply to try to belong to a group that seems to want to help and teach about these things, right? Groups or people that sell magic or sell the spiritual. Mind you, I'm not, absolutely not assuming you are ignorant in these things, and I'm certainly not talking to an audience which I assume to be purely naive, uneducated, or uninformed about these things. And I know that spirituality cannot be sold, right? But the thing is, anyone can fall into these schemes, absolutely anyone, everyone. People I know, which I consider to be far more intelligent and educated than me, which doesn't take much, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter people's backgrounds and capacities. What matters is that anyone can fall into a state of vulnerability, and someone can take advantage of that, right? And often those who take advantage of that are people we sought for help and guidance. We went there. We started this. We took those steps. We trusted. That's the thing. Spirituality, magic, it is indeed a grounded tradition based on discipline and ethics, which is often a lot more mundane than what many online and organizational gurus and spiritual leaders portray, right? If it sounds like an advertisement, like a commercial for wellness and energy healing system that uses the language of magic, healing, initiation, transformation, following ancestral ways, old ways, priestess path, sacred relationship and such. Stay well away from such things and groups and people because it often lacks the depth, discipline, discernment, maturity, humility, and doesn't have any safeguards necessary when working with trauma, altered states, and vulnerability. Again, I'm not telling you this. I'm not having this conversation because I assume you aren't capable of discerning these things. I am saying this because such people and groups are very good in deceiving, and much of the deception is cut out for them when people are in a state of vulnerability due to, for a variety of reasons, or due to reaching a moment of despair, for instance, or trying to figure out what is going on with them, or simply trying to find comfort in the spiritual and in magic. I mean, in spirituality, many of the smartest people I've known have also fallen into such groups and advertisements of the spiritual because it is created to lure people in, and it is very well done, and creates a language people want and expect to hear, and also feeds what people want to hear and experience. It often offers a possibility to engage with the spiritual, or engage with magic. These people lack humility and lack responsibilities. They will not care if you enter in some sort of psychosis and if you end up in a spiral of delusion and psychological self-harm. And please don't feel like a fool because of the reasons that led you to engage or to seek, to find and understand the spiritual and magic. When you become, or when you have become, a victim of those who exploit your sensitivity, your vulnerability, your wish to find comfort and wonder, or your imaginative, creative mind, right? They are in the wrong. You are not wrong, and it is not your fault for being in a state of vulnerability or for not knowing yourself and your mental state. I mean, there are many reasons, thousands of reasons, personal, social, economical, traditional, etc., that leads people to not seek to know themselves, or not having the possibility and resources and will to do so, right? To know themselves. And those who exploit the vulnerable are the monsters, because naturally, many of us, most of us, enter spirituality or seek magic due to a sense of longing for wonder, right? And seeking for meaning or wanting transformation or escapism, or as the final result of despair, and we crave answers and alternative means to lift us from that despair and sorrow and agony, or because of trauma, or we are wounding, right? Or we are genuinely looking for something deeper or more meaningful. And I do understand that. I've been there. I've been in states of vulnerability as well. But these online spiritual communities or groups or gurus, energy healing systems and such often exploit people's vulnerability. Respect is required, understanding, grounding, discipline, and a sense of responsibility from both sides. And that is often what's lacking. And people end up in terrible situations and going on a spiral where they find themselves even more even more lost and despaired and in harmful situations. So these things and people do nothing but shattering our relationship with reality itself and with our own life, our perception of self, right? It builds trust issues, and this disconnects us or pushes us further away from the spiritual and from reality and from life. There's no true spiritual experience without self-knowledge of our own selves and a sense of self-worth, humility, discipline, and truly understanding what it means to respect others and ourselves and to be worthy of respect. Maturity. So be careful, be attentive, have your paper spilled. Protect yourselves, right? Whoever you are. Seek to know yourself, whatever reasons that lead you to engage with the spiritual and to find or seek to learn magic. Understand why and where does that impulse or that wish comes from. I mean, spirituality, magic will not solve the problems within, right? If the problems within are neglected, spirituality becomes an escapism, and that's it. And it's an escapism that won't be able to bury your problems, but it is very likely to augment them and give false answers and illusions to the problems that are no more than temporary tools to push the problems further down until it builds up and we enter in stages of psychosis, because we will build an alternate reality to keep giving us comfort. And indeed, I mean, admittedly, mania or the experience of mania is seductive, right? But that's not living. Magic and the spiritual are not in some far-off reality achievable by some existence outside the reality of this world. It is far more mundane, as I've said, far more mundane than most people expect and come to understand. And I very much hope this helps. May these words be useful to you. Now I'm going back to life. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being in there. Thank you for your love and friendship. As always, thank you for today. Until we meet again, my dear friends.